Let me say something that might sound a little harsh. Even your own kid, you shouldn't give them everything. Not all at once, not too early. Because sometimes, the more you give, the faster you lose them. I know that sounds wrong. We're taught the exact opposite, right? Be generous, give more, love harder, sacrifice. That's what a good person does. That's what a good parent does, a good partner, a good friend. But here's the part nobody really tells you. Giving too much, too fast, doesn't always build love. Sometimes it quietly destroys it. Think about it. At the beginning of any relationship, doesn't matter if it's your kid, your partner, or even a friend, when you do something for them, they appreciate it. They notice. They say thank you. They feel lucky to have you. But if you keep doing more and more and more, something starts to change. Not suddenly, not dramatically. Just a small shift, almost invisible. What used to feel special starts to feel normal. What used to feel like a favor starts to feel expected. And before you even realize it, what you give is no longer seen as extra. It's seen as basic. And that's where things begin to go wrong. Because once something becomes expected, it loses its value. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine you buy someone coffee. First time, they're grateful. Second time, still nice. After a while, they stop saying thank you. And one day when you don't buy it, they don't think, "Wow, you've done so much for me." They think, "Why didn't you do it this time?" That's how fast things flip. Not from love to hate, but from appreciation to expectation. And this doesn't just happen in small things. It happens in the big ones too. Parents give their kids everything early on. Money, support, a house, connections. Thinking it's love. And it is. But sometimes, instead of raising gratitude, it raises dependence. Or worse, entitlement. In relationships, one person gives everything. Time, energy, attention. Always available. Always sacrificing. And instead of being valued more, they slowly become easier to ignore, easier to take for granted. Here's the uncomfortable truth. People don't always value what you give. They value what they feel they could lose. And if you give everything away too early, there's nothing left to lose. That's why sometimes the person who gives the most ends up feeling the most invisible. And it hurts. Because in your mind, you're thinking, "I did everything for you. I gave you everything. How did it end up like this?" But from their perspective, they didn't see everything. They saw a pattern, a routine, something that was always there. And humans, we get used to things very quickly, faster than we like to admit. We get used to comfort. We get used to help. We get used to people. And once we're used to something, we stop noticing it. That doesn't make someone evil, it just makes them human. And that's the part that's hard to accept. Because this isn't just about bad people. It's about how all of us are wired. You do it too. I do it too. We all appreciate things at first, and then, slowly, we normalize them. So if you give too much too fast, you're not creating more love. You might just be speeding up that process. Turning something meaningful into something ordinary. And once something becomes ordinary, it's very hard to go back. So the real question isn't, should you give? Of course you should. The real question is, how do you give without losing your value? Because giving is easy. Almost anyone can do that. But knowing when to hold back, how much to give, and how fast to give, that's where it gets tricky. And that's what most people never learn. They either give nothing or they give everything. And both can break relationships, just in different ways. So if you've ever felt like you gave someone your all and somehow it still wasn't enough, you're not crazy. You just ran into something most people don't understand yet. And in the next part, we're going to break that down. what's actually happening inside people's minds, and why appreciation slowly turns into expectation without anyone noticing. So, why does this happen? Why does appreciation slowly turn into expectation? It's not because people suddenly change. It's not like someone wakes up one day and decides, yeah, I'm gonna stop appreciating this person. That's not how it works. It's much quieter than that, much slower. It's something your brain does automatically, without asking you, without you even noticing. Let me explain it in the simplest way possible. Your brain is built to adapt, to normalize things. Anything that happens again and again, your brain starts treating it as normal. Not special, not extra, just part of life. Think about the first time you got something you really wanted. Maybe it was money. Maybe it was a new phone. Maybe it was someone giving you a lot of attention. At first, it feels amazing. You notice every little detail. You appreciate it. But give it a little time, a few days, a few weeks, and suddenly that same thing doesn't feel as exciting anymore. Not because it got worse, but because you got used to it. That's how fast the human brain adjusts. Psychologists call this adaptation. But you don't need the word. You already live it every day. Now take that same idea and apply it to relationships. When someone gives you something consistently, time, attention, support, money, your brain doesn't keep saying, wow, this is amazing. It slowly shifts to, this is how things are. And once something becomes how things are, you stop questioning it. You stop appreciating it the same way. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Your brain doesn't just normalize what you get, it also starts building expectations around it. So instead of thinking, I'm lucky to have this, you start thinking, this is what I should have. That shift is everything, because gratitude and expectation cannot live in the same space. The moment expectation goes up, gratitude goes down. Not because someone is ungrateful on purpose, but because their brain has already moved on. Let's go back to that simple coffee example. At the start, it's a gift. Then it becomes a habit. Then it becomes a standard. And once it's a standard, missing it feels like something is wrong. That's when the problem really shows up. Because now, you're not being judged by what you've given, you're being judged by what you didn't give this time. And that's a completely different game. You could have done something 100 times, but the one time you don't, that's the thing people notice. Not the pattern, just the break in the pattern. And this is where a lot of people get hurt, because from their side it feels unfair. They're thinking, I've done so much. I've always been there. Why is this one moment such a big deal? But from the other side, it doesn't feel like so much. It just feels like normal life suddenly changed. And humans don't like losing things we've gotten used to, even if we didn't earn them, even if we didn't ask for them. Once it becomes part of our reality, we hold on to it. And if it disappears, we feel it immediately. That's why sometimes people react stronger to what you stop giving than to everything you already gave. It's not logical, but it's real. And once you understand this, a lot of confusing situations start to make sense. Why someone who used to appreciate you now barely notices you. Why the more you try to give, the less impact it seems to have. Why pulling back even a little suddenly creates tension. It's not random, it's a pattern, a very human one. And the tricky part is, once you've created that pattern, it's hard to undo. Because now you're not just giving, you're maintaining an expectation. And expectations, much harder to manage than kindness. That's why giving more doesn't always fix things. Sometimes it makes it worse. Because now you're feeding something that keeps growing. And the more it grows, the harder it becomes to step back without consequences. So the real issue isn't generosity, it's unchecked consistency without boundaries. Doing something nice once, that's kindness. Doing it all the time, no matter what, that becomes a system. And systems create expectations. And expectations, if you're not careful, will quietly replace appreciation. Not overnight, not dramatically, just slowly enough that you don't notice it happening. Until one day, you feel like you've given everything, and somehow it still doesn't feel like enough. The scary part about all of this is that nothing breaks all at once. It happens slowly, quietly, almost politely. Let's make this real, because this isn't just theory. You've seen this happen. Maybe you've lived it. Think about a parent and a child. At the beginning, it's all love, pure love. The parent just wants to give their kid a better life, so they give, and give, and give. They solve problems before the kid even feels them. They provide everything early: money, comfort, opportunities. And at first, the kid is grateful. They listen. They respect the parent. But over time, something shifts. The kid stops seeing these things as gifts. They start seeing them as normal. And then, one day, the parent says no. Maybe it's the first real no in a long time. Maybe it's small. But the reaction, way bigger than expected. Suddenly, there's frustration, attitude, distance. And the parent is confused. They're thinking, after everything I've done, this is how you react? But from the kid's point of view, it doesn't feel like everything. It feels like something was taken away. That's how the dynamic flips. Now look at relationships. One person goes all in, always texting first, always making time, always adjusting. They give attention like it's unlimited. At the start, it feels amazing. The other person feels wanted, special, chosen. But after a while, that same effort becomes background noise. The constant messages, expected. The availability, normal. The effort, invisible. And then, one day, you pull back, just a little. You don't reply as fast. You're not always available. You stop over-giving. And suddenly, everything feels different. Now there are questions. Are you okay? Did something change? Why are you acting different? Not because you did something wrong, but because you broke the pattern. And when you break the pattern, people notice. Not all the times you showed up, just the moment you didn't. Now think about friendships. There's always that one person, the one who helps everyone. Always there, always reliable. Need help moving? They're there. Need advice? They answer. Need support? They show up. At first, people appreciate it. They respect it. But over time, that person becomes the go-to. And being the go-to sounds nice until it isn't. Because now it's not special, it's expected. And the moment they're not available, people get disappointed. Not grateful for the 100 times they helped, just focused on the one time they didn't. And slowly, that helpful person starts to feel drained. Not because they gave, but because giving turned into pressure. And here's the common thread in all of this. Nothing started bad. It all started with good intentions, love, care, generosity. But without limits, those good things created a system. A system where giving became routine. Routine became expectation. Expectation became pressure. And pressure? That's where relationships start to crack. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just small moments, small reactions, small shifts in tone. Until one day, you don't recognize the dynamic anymore. You're still giving, but it doesn't feel the same. You're still showing up, but it doesn't feel appreciated. And the worst part, you don't even know exactly when it changed. Because there was no clear moment, no big event, just a slow drift from something meaningful to something taken for granted. And once you're in that place, it's very hard to fix by just giving more. Because the issue isn't a lack of effort, it's the pattern that effort created. So what do you do with all this? Stop giving? Stop caring? Become cold? No, that's not the answer. The problem was never kindness. It was kindness without limits. There's a big difference. Because giving is easy. Most people can give, especially when they care about someone. But knowing how much to give, when to give, and when to stop, that's the hard part. That's where most people mess up. They think love means give everything, hold nothing back, prove it through sacrifice. Sounds noble, but in real life, it usually backfires. Because when you give everything, you leave no space. No space for the other person to appreciate you, miss you, value what you bring. You remove the gap. And that gap? That's where appreciation lives. If something is always there, it stops feeling important. So what you actually need is not less love. It's structure. You need boundaries. Not walls, not distance, just boundaries. Let's make that simple. A boundary is not saying, I don't care. A boundary is saying, I care, but not at the cost of losing myself. That's it. It means you don't say yes to everything. You don't show up every single time. You don't solve every problem for them. Not because you're selfish, but because you understand something most people don't. If you always carry someone, they never learn to stand. And if you're always available, you slowly become invisible. So instead of giving everything, you start controlling the pace. You give, but not all at once. You help, but not every time. You show up, but not at the cost of yourself. And here's the interesting part. When you do that, people actually start valuing you more, not less, more. Because now what you give isn't guaranteed, it's chosen. And things that are chosen feel more real than things that are automatic. Think about it. If someone is always there no matter what, you expect it. But if someone shows up when it matters, you remember it. That's the difference. Consistency is good, but predictability without limits, that's where value disappears. So instead of being endlessly available, be intentionally present. Instead of overgiving, give with awareness. Instead of proving your worth through sacrifice, protect your value through boundaries. Because once people feel they can't just take you for granted, everything changes. The way they speak to you, the way they treat you, the way they respond when you show up. Not because you demanded it, but because the dynamic shifted. And here's something most people don't realize. Pulling back a little doesn't weaken real relationships, it reveals them. If someone only values you when you're constantly giving, that's not connection, that's dependence. And dependence is fragile. But respect? Respect grows when there are limits. So no, you don't stop being a good person. You just stop being an easy one to take advantage of. You stay kind, but you stop being predictable. You stay generous, but you stop being unlimited. And that's where things start to feel different. Not forced, not heavy, just balanced. At the end of the day, this isn't really about money. It's not even about how much you give. It's about how people experience you. Because people don't remember everything you did. They remember how it felt to be around you. Did it feel balanced, or did it feel one-sided? Did it feel chosen, or just always available? That's what sticks. A lot of people think, if I just give more, they'll understand my value. But that's not how it works. When you give more and more, you don't always increase your value. Sometimes you just increase the baseline. And once the baseline goes up, everything you do becomes normal. And normal doesn't get remembered. That's why some of the most giving people end up feeling the most overlooked. Not because they didn't do enough, but because they made a lot feel like standard. And once something becomes standard, it's invisible. So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. Don't turn your kindness into something people stop noticing. Let it be felt. Let it have weight. Let it have timing. Because timing matters more than volume. Giving the right thing at the right moment means more than giving everything all the time. And here's something worth thinking about. If someone only appreciates you when you're constantly giving, what they really appreciate is what you provide, not who you are. And those two things are not the same. Real connection doesn't come from pressure. It doesn't come from overgiving. It comes from mutual awareness, from space, from choice, from two people who can give but don't feel forced to. So no, you don't need to become cold. You don't need to start calculating everything. You just need to stay aware. Aware of how much you're giving, aware of how fast you're giving it, and aware of whether it's still coming from choice or from habit. Because the moment it becomes habit, it starts losing meaning. And once meaning fades, everything else follows. So be kind, of course. Be generous, that's a good thing. But don't be unlimited. Don't give in a way that makes people forget your value. Don't love in a way that makes you disappear. Leave a little space, leave a little edge. Not to push people away, but to remind them you're not something they can just take for granted. Because the truth is, people don't respect what's always there. They respect what they know they could lose. So be a good person, just not an easy one. Be kind, but not easy to replace. Nobody admits. There's one more thing people don't like to admit. Sometimes, it's not that others took advantage of you. It's that you trained them to. That's the uncomfortable part. Because it means this isn't just about them. It's also about you. Every time you said yes when you wanted to say no, you taught them something. Every time you gave more than you were okay with, you set a new standard. Every time you showed up, no matter how you felt, you made it look normal. And people don't question what looks normal. They just follow the pattern. So over time, it wasn't them pushing harder. It was the line moving little by little. Until one day, you look around and think, how did it get this far? But it didn't jump there. It grew there, quietly, step by step. And here's the good news. If a pattern can be created, it can also be changed. Not by explaining, not by arguing, but by acting differently, by slowing down, by saying no sometimes, by not always being available. At first, it might feel uncomfortable, even wrong. People might question it, push back. But that's not a bad sign. That's proof the pattern is shifting. And once it settles, something interesting happens. The right people adjust. They respect it. They meet you halfway. And the ones who don't? They were never respecting you. They were just benefiting from you. And that's something worth knowing. Because in the end, this isn't about giving less. It's about giving in a way that doesn't cost you your position in someone's life. Not above them, not below them, but equal. Because real relationships don't come from one person giving everything. They come from both people choosing each other, again and again. Not out of habit, but out of awareness. And once you understand that, You stop trying to prove your value and start protecting it.